Welcome to Kopi Time, a podcast series on markets and economies from DBS Group Research. I'm Taimur Baig, Chief Economist. Welcome to our 96th episode. Boy, those episodes are adding up, aren't they? Today, we will talk about the world of the ultra-wealthy. I see this podcast as a nice inverse of the podcast we had a few months ago when we talked to two young Singaporeans about the Instagram handle Woke Salaryman, where they handle financial literacy issues for people who are starting out. Today, we're going to have Greg Wells, Chief Operating Officer of Tiger 21. That would be the other end of the spectrum. Tiger 21 is a premier peer membership organization for high net worth wealth creators and preservers. Greg oversees the organization's global strategy, development, and staff, including its group chairs and membership executives, and he will elaborate on those elements in detail later on. Greg Wells, welcome to Kopi Time.
Hi, it's great to be here with you. Looking forward to spending time with you.
It's a pleasure, as always, talking to you, Greg. Why and how was Tiger 21 founded?
Well, Tiger 21, as you mentioned, is a membership organization for ultra-high net worth individuals. We've been around 23 years, and it was founded by a gentleman named Michael Sonnenfeld, who was an entrepreneur in New York City. And early in his career, he was a member of a peer group that was then called TEC, which stood for the Executive Committee. And now that organization is known as Vistage. And Michael subsequently had several successful exits. He was in the real estate business. And almost all other peer groups are for active CEOs. But after Michael had his exits, he saw an opportunity to form a peer group that was different, one that was focused on each member's financial well-being, their investments, and all the related components of wealth, which is very different. Again, every one of the peer groups that are around are typically focused on running a business, but he needed something now that wealth was at a much higher level that he could lean into and find peers that had a similar wealth situation. So they came up with the name Tiger 21, and get asked this often, but Tiger 21 is an acronym. It stands for the Investment Group for Enhanced Results in the 21st Century. And its focus is to provide members with an opportunity to develop their skills and abilities to be disciplined investors, enhance their wealth, and advance personal goals beyond investing.
Okay, very interesting. Let's expand on that a little more. Like, give us a sense of the structure of the organization. Is it like largely based out of the US or is it global? And the size and the, let's say, the wealth of the network.
Okay, yeah, exactly. Well, today we have 1,230 members around the globe, around the world, and we're currently in 45 cities that are in 5 different countries: the US, Canada, the UK, Switzerland, and our newest group in Portugal. But now we're focused on rounding out that global vision, starting to put groups into the Middle East and Asia, with a particular focus on Singapore, where we are looking to establish our beachhead for this part of the world. We have 97 confidential groups today that are meeting with members monthly. Members are entrepreneurs, investors, top executives, and each of those have a minimum of 20 million US in investable assets. Our members' average is about 113 million. So you add that up, our members are collectively managing around $101.3 billion. With the majority of our members, their net worth is in the range of $40 to $80 million. We have a number of billionaires that'll skew that top number, but our sweet spot's probably that $40 to $80 million range. Each Tiger group has 12 to 15 members, and it's led by a chair who is an accomplished professional and experienced facilitator. And that chair basically takes members through an all-day session, which has a number of components to it, all designed to really help the different members around the table. And you can think of this table as essentially one's personal board of directors. So each of the members, you wouldn't have a group, for example, of 15 real estate people, because that's not diverse, and you're not going to get a different perspective if everybody's in the same business or have the same wealth journey or different asset class expertise. So we build groups that are very diverse in terms of age and background and experience, as well as asset class and wealth journey. And this is designed so that through all the elements of a monthly meeting, which are a world update where everybody gets together and kind of shares their perspective of the world they've been in over the last month with each other and new ideas and things that they've seen and experienced that can collectively help. We then have what's called an issue and opportunity section, where think of this as your board of directors. The focus of the group is on a particular opportunity or an issue that a member may be working through. So that board of directors spends 20, 30, 40 minutes solving or working to solve an opportunity or an issue a member has. We then have something called a portfolio defense that we can get into a little bit later, but essentially to help people kind of get a perspective of their own financial situation. And then our members are all lifelong learners. So we have something called the learning session, which is really the chair in the group determining what their learning agenda is and what they want to accomplish or learn about, whether it's financial, whether it's some of the things going on in the world. There's a lot going on today with geopolitics and inflation and recession fears, but there's also a ton of opportunities for people to see at this time. And so all these things are discussed. And then finally, it's all capped. Even though we have these groups, we're connected in a global community we call it Learn, Access, Connect. Our members learn from each other at regional conferences, at global conferences, from their ability to network online and in person, access to all sorts of thought leaders and talks. We have Tiger Talks, similar to TED Talks for our members, and then lots of different global perspectives that they get from being connected to each other around the world. So it's a pretty vibrant, exciting community.
Greg, these regular gatherings, you talked about opportunities and issues. I'm assuming there's also some consideration over risks, like right now, the whole duration risk that's affecting banks in the West Coast. So it's also about managing risks.
Oh, absolutely. I think about, a lot of, it's interesting because most of our members have come from an entrepreneurial route into Tiger 21. And when you're an entrepreneur, you're a risk taker. And you've had to be out there taking some risks that most people don't take. You had a vision, you grinding away to make something happen. And then, for a small number of them, one day they get there, whether it's suddenly or over 20, 30, 40 years, but they're able to take some money off the table or have an event. And all of a sudden, here they are with a chunk of money. Well, those same skills that got you to be a successful entrepreneur don't necessarily translate over to the other side of the coin as an investor. Investors by nature should be assessing risk, should, be very diligent in where they go. That's not the entrepreneur, which generally is go forward and then think backwards. Is that the right decision? So risk is a big point. And part of being in a Tiger group is people that are newly minted as millionaires often come in. And again, the perspective around the table, somebody who's been there back in 2008 when they've seen some of the challenges can share their perspective and experience with someone who's never been in that experience before. And it's magical how we help each other in that way.
Sure. Greg, earlier you talked about Vistage. I can also think about peer networks like YPO or EO. So can you sort of give us some sense of, how is Tiger 21 different from those peer networks?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, you think about YPO and Vistage. They're really two of the great large CEO groups globally. And I want to emphasize CEO because that is their membership.
Correct.
It's comprised mostly of CEOs, very different than ours, which is comprised of individual wealth creators. But YPO requires members to join before they're 45. There's a higher percentage of members that are CEOs of YPO that are 40 and under. And many of those are running inherited business, and it's great to run an inherited business, but obviously that journey goes a little differently than someone that's had to start with very little and grow it to a lot. So essentially, but they're great organizations. And I'll tell you that while they're both focused on serving CEOs who are running businesses, it's actually also interesting from both of those organizations. They've been around about 65 years each, and both really amazingly have about 33,000 members around the world. One is a nonprofit, YPO is a nonprofit, and one's for-profit, Vistage, and they really are both great organizations. YPO has groups that are member facilitated. So you might be a member of a forum, which is 6 to 8 people that meet, and that would be self-facilitated. Vistage has groups that are led by professional facilitators. So the best way, I think, to explain how Tiger fits into this is you can think of both of YPO and Vistage, and even EO, who's very respected and large organization around the world. You can think of those as the Harvards and the Stanfords and the, some of the great universities. We're essentially the graduate school. So when someone, if you think about when each of those members of those organizations have, you and I could be a member, let's say, of YPO or Vistage. You might have $100 million personally to your name, and I might have $100 to my name. That's not going to be discussed in a YPO Vistage EO meeting. We're going to talk about our company. But Tiger is the place where once you've achieved a certain minimum wealth, most of our members need to have a discussion about their personal side, which may not relate to the focus of EO, YPO, and Vistage. So we're the place to come once you've graduated. We kind of say success is where we begin, when you've hit a certain threshold, and you need to be around other peers that have made it to that particular level too. So you can have conversations and look at opportunities and really discuss things that are uniquely put in place for where you are in the world. And both those other organizations, by the way, they're terrific organizations. Highest respect. In fact, I used to be on the executive team at Vistage for many years, and we don't see ourselves as competitive. We see ourselves as really compatible. And in fact, many of our members today are still Vistage members or YPO members. There's great value in both. It just depends where you are in your life. And for people that have been fortunate enough to create a good sum of wealth, we are that place uniquely that place where you can come and have those discussions in a peer group.
So let's think of the process of somebody becoming a member of Tiger 21. How does that work? And also, in addition to what you talked about, that you have a peer network, you get confidential advice, and you explain your portfolio. Are there other things that these members are getting from Tiger 21?
Oh, absolutely. It's a really interesting element. I sometimes think that the most challenging job in the world is to be Tiger 21's chief marketing officer, because we're not that well known, but that's actually probably on purpose. And frankly, I think our members kind of enjoy that. We're kind of that secret organization below the radar. Because really, if you think about it, there aren't that many people in the world that would qualify for Tiger 21. The minimum to get into Tiger 21 is $20 million US in investable assets. So I think it best counts that maybe a few million people in the world that have that. So, it's not a big market when you're looking at Vistage or YPO or EO that have, millions and millions of CEOs around the world. So I would tell you that the majority of our members are nominated to Tiger 21 by a current member or a Tiger 21 chair, but we also have prospective members approach us who have heard about us. And once you get on our radar, we would then do some initial screening and vetting. And after that, put you in touch with one of our Tiger 21 chairs, which just are amazing individuals that lead these Tiger groups around the world. And the chair would go through a pretty serious and rigorous vetting process in combination with Tiger. So you would certainly meet with that chair, first a conversation, then ultimately an in-person meeting to really understand your background, what it is you're looking to get from Tiger 21, and not just what you want from Tiger 21, but what can a prospective member contribute to the local group or to the broader community. And so we go through this due diligence process with something called the 5 C's. And I used to be a banker like you. And back in the day, we looked at the 5 C's of credit, which was something that we worked through to kind of understand somebody's ability and to be a borrower. Well, I repurposed that here at Tiger. So we have the 5 C's of membership, which is character, contribution. What are they going to contribute to the groups? What are they going to get from the groups? Capacity. Being in a Tiger group isn't about writing a check. It's really about showing up, being present, and being a participant in the group. So we have 11 meetings a year. If you're a member, we meet our members. We ask them to be at 8 of the 11 meetings. They're busy people, but you need to kind of be there to get the benefit of what Tiger's all about. So we want to make sure you have the capacity not only to be at the meetings, but to participate in the community, to give feedback, to be available, to really be a great member of the community. There's certain conditions to be a Tiger member, which is confidentiality, non-solicitation, a number of other things. Each member signs a code of conduct, as do our chairs. And then finally, capital. You need to have at least $20 million verified, $20 million in US investable assets verified. So those are kind of our 5 C's of membership. And you put this together and we do extensive background checks, reference checks, as I mentioned, wealth verifications. And we do this ultimately to create an amazing speed of trust amongst our members. Because you think about it, we're talking about things that often our members may have not spoken about to sometimes a spouse or a significant other, or friends or relatives. This is money and the things that happen with money are very, introspective for a lot of people and not something that's just blatantly out there for everyone. So this is a place where people find that unique area to open up and to share and to be with people that are going through that similarly. But if we're going to have that environment, we have to absolutely make sure that people in the room are really adhering to those code of conducts and that members feel safe for these conversations. And we've done a pretty darn good job of that, because the conversations and the outcomes from those conversations and the experiences are really amazing. And if you're a member, I think the things that you would be benefiting from, it's slightly different for everyone. I mean, everyone doesn't have the same outcome because they're all on their different journeys, but it could be anything from life after an exit to lifestyle and their 2.0 version. Many of our members have had exits in their early 40s and, before and even after that. And there's a lot of years left after those folks. And what are they going to do with that now they're in this situation? So this is that place to explore and look at that option. There's tax strategies, there's legacy planning, philanthropy, the list goes on. And it really is an individual journey that we try to curate with each member individually. So we're big enough to be relevant and have resources for all these people, but we're also small enough that we can have an intimate experience with each one of our members to really make sure their individual experience and their journey is really worthwhile and valuable to each of them.
Greg, in recent years, we've seen the likes of Bill Gates and Warren Buffett try to convince the ultra wealthy in the world that they should part with most of their wealth before they pass away, or not necessarily leave most of it for their offsprings, but give it to charitable causes, climate change or inequality, whatever. Among your membership, do you see that message beginning to resonate?
It's really interesting. As I mentioned, majority of our members come to us from an entrepreneurial path. And when you're on that path, you're trying to make a payroll, you're trying to grow a business. And I know there are a lot of entrepreneurs that already early on have a philanthropical, bent or a gene or a focus, but the majority are really focused on that company. Correct. And so it's really interesting when they get to Tiger. We don't preach philanthropy. We're not here to tell anybody how to invest or what they need to do. It's really a group conversation. But what happens is people realize sometimes they go, wow, I have enough money. I mean, I really have enough money to take care of myself, my family, my needs, things down the road. And, as far as I've seen, after we're gone, there's really only three places that money can go. And that's to, your children, a charity, or the government, or some notion of all those three areas, right? And I think, people tend to start thinking about, because they can be more introspective of their life, their legacy, it really opens up, wow, I can do well by doing good. And helping people that are maybe less fortunate, or maybe getting behind things that I'm very passionate about as an individual that have a philanthropic nature. So we're super proud of our membership in terms of their ability to impact the world. Some of the things that our members have funded and done and gotten behind, their own projects they've started, taking their entrepreneurial mindset and putting it, now they have some more time maybe into these endeavors. They're world-changing and life-changing, and story after story. And then every year at our annual conference, we call it the Global Exchange, we tend to feature four of the most really, there's so many to choose from, but I guess we spotlight or highlight four of the most unique, interesting, impactful endeavors that members have done and showcase those in public service announcements. And it's really an amazing moment to see the recognition those members get from their philanthropic efforts. And it catches, because when I hear and learn about other members in a group that are figured out a way to do something, and I realize that I have the means to do something I hadn't thought about it before, it really triggers some things. And legacy really becomes an important part for people. And these philanthropic areas, as you well know, are certainly a way for people to feel better beyond just, making great amount of money. It's the difference they can leave in the world. We have a number of networks in Tiger 21. Our members are really active in the networks. And you mentioned climate change. We're not a political organization by any way, shape, or form, but you tend to have, thought leadership and really amazing intellectual people in Tiger 21, and lots of discussions. And some of those discussions lead to people getting a checkbook out to, put their money where their passion is. So it makes it really an interesting organization be very proud of.
Absolutely. Earlier, when you were talking about the 5 C's, one of the C's were confidentiality. I'm curious to know how you ensure a culture of transparency where everybody has to show where they're investing, and then there's the portfolio defense that we'll talk about momentarily is done. But at the same time, it's confidential. As you said, some of this stuff is very sensitive, and people keep a very small circle of knowledge of those holdings. So is there a tension between that, or you've sort of figured out the secret sauce of balancing transparency with confidentiality?
Well, it is. It's you have to thread that needle carefully, and I'm really proud of the things that we've done for the last 23 years to really ensure that takes place, because that really is our secret sauce, as you mentioned there. We take it serious. It's one of the highest elements of our due diligence, I should say, is one of the highest elements of satisfaction. And we do a member satisfaction survey once a year. Interestingly enough, for many of the things that members are satisfied in Tiger, at the top or the top 5 of that list is our due diligence and the rigor we take to vet potential members and make sure that our community is as transparent, but at the same time full of making sure there's non-solicitation, making sure that confidentiality sticks. So each member does have to sign a code of conduct. We're very upfront with members to show them that code of conduct. And if someone's not going to be comfortable with that, then we don't encourage anybody to be a membership. In fact, discouraged with a big capital D. And our chairs also have to sign a code of conduct. You think about it, our chairs certainly they're not here they're super successful in their own lives, and they're amazing people. Many could qualify to be a Tiger member, but they're not here to advance their own personal business endeavors. They're here because they are also curious and have a desire to learn and make a difference in the world and to be around some amazing people themselves. So everybody who's in Tiger, staff does too. We have a code of conduct that we're here to take care of our members, serve our members, not to solicit. The list goes on. And so we look at that. Members get reminded of that at every single meeting. I think that, if there is some confusion around that or something, our members are quick to, ask about that in the rare situation that something comes up. And it's just something that, hasn't really impacted us in a negative way. And because I think it's in the DNA. And going back to how somebody becomes a member, I think that's why we spend one of the reasons, the benefits, I should say, from really taking our time to pick our members and to spend time in multiple sessions, and for our chairs to meet with that person face to face. So we have a good understanding of who they are as an individual, and they have a good understanding of who we are from our culture and the membership and chairs and staff that we have. So hopefully there's complete clarity coming in, and we keep an eye on it, remind people, and it's been pretty significant to this point in terms of our ability to create this environment where people really do feel comfortable. I mean, it's amazing. You could be a member in London, and our members have visitation opportunities if there's an empty seat at a table ahead of time, they can work with the chair to attend a meeting. So imagine you are a member in London and you're flying to Los Angeles because you're there for a business deal, or maybe your daughter goes to USC and you're coming to visit. You can actually go on the members' internal site, connect with that chair, and find yourself sitting in front of 14 complete strangers, although they're Tiger members. And because of the vetting process and the fact that you're in Tiger, they're going to welcome you into that group in Los Angeles, and you're going to be sitting front and center for some very deep, robust, insightful, and personal conversation with members. And it really is the speed of trust that we create with our system and our ecosystem, and most of our members being nominated by other members and chairs. You add all that together, it's a pretty amazing culture, and we've been able to balance those things of transparency and confidentiality for 23 years, and we'll be doing it for a lot of years in the future.
That's powerful. That's very powerful indeed. Well done. Okay, portfolio defense. Explain to me how that works.
Well, that's our differentiating factor for sure, and people ask me about this all the time. So I would say it really is the most unique aspect of Tiger 21 is this thing we call a portfolio defense. And, the facts are, it really is, at one end, it is an individual's balance sheet, income statement, it's an analysis, and the purpose of their wealth. And so we use two templates. One is qualitative and one is quantitative. And for most of our members, the qualitative, which is really your story, for many of our members, the first time they do a PD, it's the first time they've actually paused to think about, wow, what's this journey I've been on for 20, 30, 40 years? And, I wasn't really an overnight success. It was a long journey for many of our members. And what did I learn along the way? And what are my values? And what do I want my future to be? And what's the purpose of my wealth? And am I giving $1 or $100 million to my kids, or generational wealth? What am I trying to do? So for many of our entrepreneurial members, they work with their chair and they fill out the qualitative, which is this story. It's often a 20-page analysis of all the things I mentioned and many other things that really causes them to think about where they are in life and where they want to go. And the most important thing from the qualitative side is to surface 3 or 4 questions that, going back to Tiger 21, a group being your personal board of directors. So this is that time when, for 2 hours, once a year, once every 12, 13, 14 months, if I'm doing my PD for 2 hours in that month, the group is solely focused on helping me. So I'm going to come in sharing my qualitative ahead of time. And then ultimately, they're going to see some additional numbers in my financial situation at the meeting. But you add those two together, each of the other members now has a really comprehensive view of me, so that I can then, with the help of my chair, have surfaced 3 or 4 questions that I'm going to ask the group. And over the course of those couple hours, the group's going to do a deep dive to really, now that they know me and my journey and where I want to go, they can really kind of shine a light on some blind spots. They can, I only know what I know, but I'm with collective intelligence of all these other folks around the room that have different wealth journeys and different experiences and different expertise in certain asset classes. So nobody's there to sell me anything. Nobody's there to do anything other than be there for me, to share some things sometimes I may not have thought of, sometimes things I don't want to hear, but maybe need to hear in that perspective, because it's nothing but the honest truth from their eyes. And if we do this right, those questions that I surface to the group get addressed. And there's a lot of amazing advisors out in the world. There's a lot of amazing books to read. There's a lot of amazing ways to get information. But it's pretty magical to get real-time information from people that know you and care about you in this structure, in this format, led by a chair that really, you think about how you have to facilitate a conversation with 14 amazing entrepreneurs and type A personalities around the table full of knowledge and skill, helping give input to a member who's opening themselves up. Somebody's got to manage that and make sure that lands that plane in the right time. And our chairs do an amazing job in that. But that is the experience. And so for many members, it's a little bit nerve-wracking. They think about, wow, I'm going to share this and do this. But again, we share this up front with people. So they join knowing, and actually many of them embracing this opportunity, because they come out of it with such different insights and perspectives on where the rest of their journey can take them. And then many members have been in Tiger for 23 years, as long as we've been around. And you can think, wow, do I do one of these every year? Sometimes my portfolio doesn't change that much. Well, it might not, but we have other different defenses. And that could be a real estate defense, a life defense, a philanthropy defense. Really, defense is nothing more than meant to think like when you're defending your thesis for your PhD. It's not anybody's grilling you. It's just to say, here are information that you're bringing forward of what your current situation, what your belief, and what your structure is. And there's people that care about you to challenge that. And as I mentioned, shine a light or maybe share some different perspectives. And again, not just your portfolio, but all these other elements. That's the power of having a group of people that you get to know intimately in the Tiger environment. And through the different defenses that you can address or be a part of over your lifetime in Tiger, it's phenomenal. And it's really our secret sauce.
Now, I can't imagine very successful entrepreneurs who have done very well finding this easy. They have accomplished, they have a certain degree of confidence, and I'm sure it's not going to be all cordial, touchy-feely. It can get contentious. So I'm sure there's an element of training your chairs to deal with conflict or potential conflict resolution and making it worth for everybody's time.
Yeah, we do. And we have, we have a membership community today of 1,230 members. And today we have 75 chairs, and that's another special community. Our chairs are all really successful individuals. A number of them actually been Tiger members that wanted to come over and be a Tiger chair. And we meet regularly. Our new chairs, we vet them and take them through a development session when they become a chair. And then our chairs, we gather around the world globally once a year at our global conference. We have a chair conference before that, full of lots of training and development from outside resources, but also our chairs themselves. They're living and breathing and interact with members every day, all year long. And so they are developed amazing, learners and individuals themselves who are, lifelong learners. So they lean in and they love this stuff and they share the opportunities, as I mentioned at our chair conference, and we have different retreats we bring our chairs to, so they get together. And then of course they have online platforms and cohorts that they spend time. So it's the learning on top of the learning and the desire to help people achieve their best. And so our chairs, if you really think about it, they're like the conductor of an orchestra. If you didn't have a great conductor to be able to take these talented musicians that are our members in this metaphor, but to create beautiful music, somebody has to be up there with the baton, not playing the music, but up there kind of bringing out the best or kind of, tampering it when it's a little bit loud. And our chairs do that with amazing skill and competency and great emotional intelligence. And it's really a badge of honor, I think, to be a Tiger chair. And that's, you add this together, they just do amazing things with our members and facilitate terrific meetings and even beyond. Our chairs now facilitate many of our networks. We have a number of learning opportunities and cohorts and collectives that our members get involved with for their own learning journeys outside of the group. And many of those are led by our chairs too. So it's really a learning community of our chairs and our members that, again, very, very special community.
Very interesting. You said at the beginning that you're expanding into Asia. Are Asian Tiger 21 members any different from the ones in US and Europe?
No, I don't think so. I don't think the members are. We currently have members right now that live in Singapore that participate in, since we don't have a group there and forming one right now, they're participating in groups in London or Zurich. Okay. And, entrepreneurial, some are second gens, maybe they didn't start the business, but I have to tell you, there's a lot of individuals, not just in Singapore, which is exciting for us, but also, as wealth is passed down, a lot of our members, children second gen are starting out maybe on first base. They have a couple dollars from maybe they started out with, but they themselves become wealth creators and take what they've started with and add to that in immense ways. I think, I have a number of friends in Singapore that I met over coming to college when they came over to the US. And I think that's a trend in Singapore and Asia that happens a lot, where people will go to the US to school. The peer groups are pretty prevalent. People are a bit open. They come back and, they're coming into this world and comfortable place of sharing and getting peer responses and being open to that feedback. So, I think in many ways it makes members very similar who have a desire to, once they've achieved some wealth, they certainly know that the world is a bit different for them. Opportunities are different, ways to kind of leverage that to benefit their families. So those are felt across the world. And so I think we're going to see very similar elements for members in Singapore, although I do think there are cultural elements and there are, opportunities that are taking place. I look at the flux of wealth that's come down from Hong Kong and the number of family offices that now reside in Singapore. And some are new, but some have been there for a while. And people around the world are seeing, great wealth develop. We're seeing more family offices come into play, multi-family offices and single-family offices. And in fact, we're starting a program that will have groups that will have a bit of a focus on family offices for those folks that have a single-family office and have certain challenges that maybe some of our other members don't have. So, it's going to be interesting. I'm looking forward to that journey as we go into different countries around the world and respecting and loving and embracing the culture. It's like hearing the same music that's played. We all know a certain musical piece. We know it, but you play that music in a symphony in London or Las Vegas or Los Angeles and Singapore. It may be a little different because of the makeup of the musicians in that area, in this case, the members, or maybe the chair has a different kind of cultural journey, but that music and people have passion for that music. So I think we'll see a lot of similarities.
All right. Very, very well put, Greg. I like the symphony metaphor. I recently watched Michael Sonnenfeld, founder of Tiger 21 and CNBC. And there are a couple of things he was talking about, certain insights that he has, or you guys have picked up from your members. I was struck by the observation that 60% of Tiger 21 members believe a recession is imminent, and that the network's allocation to private equity is at an all-time high. Okay, that's pretty interesting. Can you share with us a few other insights on how
Well, I
are
think,
investing?
yeah, it is interesting. I mean, obviously our groups are very confidential,
Of
but
course.
our members are also really they, at the end of every meeting, they kind of share different surveys responses to us and give us some insight in a very confidential, so without knowing who's sharing that information, but you aggregate that and you start to see some interesting elements. And then when a member does a PD, we certainly don't know any member's individual financial situation. That's not our business. We're not looking at that. But in percentages, we do have a sense from each member's PD, what their allocation is. So, we've been tracking this for, almost 20 some years, and it's presented a nice pattern. And cash has always been in that, 12% range, but we're seeing cash go down a bit. And as you mentioned earlier, we're seeing private equity go up. I think it's 35% right now, which is, typically it's been in the 23% range. But I think it's important to remember that when we say private equity, many of our members are investing in smaller businesses, privately held businesses, as opposed to the public equity. So within that private equity asset allocation, there's a lot of venture capital dollars. And so in stressful times like this, or in times of uncertainty, when things are in havoc everywhere, our members probably tend to go where they're most comfortable. And since most have made money on an entrepreneurial on an entrepreneurial journey, on an entrepreneurial endeavor, when times are tough, they're actually going back and saying, "Well, I have this cash, but I'm gonna bet or put it into a VC fund, or I'm gonna back a private company that I know, or put it into somebody that I've heard about, Tiger. They may know a company, and I'm betting on that." The CEO or the founder of that organization. That's probably a bit more comfortable than just having your money sitting there in cash and not seeing it doing anything. Although that changes, because I got to tell you, you've met one Tiger member, you've met one Tiger member. You've seen one Tiger group, you've seen one Tiger group. So, you can talk to a group in Denver and you can talk to a group in London. And when we get feedback from chairs, some are taking large chunks of money and holding it aside. And others are really, as I mentioned, deploying it into more of the private equity. So, you aggregate that over 1,200 members, you get a picture, but you really have to go down a bit more to understand the nuances within each group and each member's kind of personal choices there. But the themes are that. I mean, cash is going down just a little bit, but 10% or 12% to 10%, that's a big change. And particularly going into private equity. It's going to be really interesting to see, though, what happens to all of this in real time. As we're having this conversation over the last few days, the whole Silicon Valley Bank elements happening, and some of the other things that are happening in the financial sector. And you think about, where people are going to put money and where they'd rather have cash or where they'd rather invest cash. And, there's a lot of uncertainty, which is great for Tiger in the sense that this is the place people come to talk about it and to share ideas. And that's why you'll see some changes in people's allocations, because there is so much information coming right now and being shared quicker than it ever has shared before. And our members are the type that are proactive versus reactive. So again, not surprising, and maybe it won't be over the course of the choppy 2023 and hopefully not beyond, but likely we'll see how the allocations ebb and flow.
It's really interesting. And I'm kind of struck by it because I've heard Michael Sonnenfeld, I think recently also in Bloomberg, talk about this issue, which is you see some of your, or many of your members, simultaneously worried about rising geopolitical risk and political risk, and embracing risk investments like private equity, or to your point, putting money into ventures that they know well. Is that contradictory, or do you see sort of a logical thread between being worried at the same time and embracing risk at the same time?
I think it's interesting. It's kind of, we said, as I mentioned previously, you met one Tiger member, you've met one Tiger member, You've met one group, you've met one group, and we're a collection of all these amazing individuals. So as you step back, it's easy to infer a pattern or pace and say, Tiger members think this, or Tiger members are investing here. We can certainly share that information. That's the beautiful insight of having information from our members. But again, I mean, you sit in groups, if you were to hear there are people that are strong, believers that a recession is coming, and they're taking, kind of some of the standard true measures that you might, and you mix that with inflation. By the way, people are living a different around the world. They have different experiences. If you're living in Europe right now, you may have a different concern or fear around war potential than in the US or Canada, or, so all those things emotionally play on you that cause, but here's the thing about a Tiger group and a Tiger meeting and being in this community. Again, going back to, if you were just the pure entrepreneur, you might make some quick moves without really thinking here. But this is the place where you can, through a chat discussion or your group meeting or a chapter meeting or just conversation with members you met, as you become a more, savvy investor, if you will, here, you learn the notion to kind of take a beat sometimes and really look at other facts and try to ascertain things before you make those decisions. And so people process those facts differently and ultimately make their own decisions from that, which leads to some of the conflicting messages that you might see or hear from different Tiger members. But the notion is that they've probably done that with a bit more thought and introspective view of things versus just kind of jumping pretty quick.
Okay. Now, a couple of decades of Tiger 21, you've been associated with it almost from the very beginning. Where does it go in the next decade? Will it keep on expanding? Is it reaching a maturation phase? What's the sense?
I think it's interesting. I think we have a really big, bright future at Tiger 21. I mean, you look at the wealth that's being created around the world. You look at, people that are coming into it at different ages, and people that want to really kind of learn and embrace all that the universe and the world keeps throwing at us. And there's huge opportunities there. So, as I mentioned, not the exact numbers, I think we're 3.5 million people in the world. Ultra high net worth investors have 30 million and above, and we're at 20 million. So trying to put a number around that is a little bit of a moving target. But that number is going to get bigger when you look at the transference of wealth that's coming down the road. So I think that there is, a big need for what we offer for many years to come. As far as Tiger goes, today we're in 44 markets around the world, 44 cities, and our short-term range in the next 3 to 4 years is to be in 60 markets around the world. And those are the markets that people of accomplishment would find, places where you want to live, work, do business, play, recreate. So that's where we're going to establish Tiger groups. And you put a couple of chairs in each of those markets so that you can really have an intermix of not just one group, but several groups. So we'll round out the rest of our markets, as a lot of it's the international markets that we're going into right now. But we always want to we'll always be small. I mentioned YPO and Vistage early, 33,000 members. That's not going to be us. We're always going to be small just because of the membership that we look for and that we serve. So I use the term glotique. We want to be global and big enough to have a global reach, but we want to be boutique. We want to be small and intimate, have intimate relationships. So for us, it's kind of a glotique is our mantra, is our North Star. And we'll continuing to find those markets, and markets will change, by the way. There's a number of markets that I'm sure we haven't thought about today that will evolve and be very right places for Tiger 21 Group to be established. But interesting beyond that, we've seen through the pandemic, many of us went on to Zoom. Most people didn't know how to spell Zoom, let alone what Zoom was back 3-4 years ago. But today it's embedded in our world, and we don't think about it twice. And so we have now global groups. We have groups that meet entirely online for a shorter period of time each month, but members from around the world can gather and have an amazing, robust conversation and experience. So we've established global groups and have a number of those around the world now. I mentioned earlier family office groups. We have focus groups that have a particular focus on family office, single family offices, and spotlighting and highlighting and processing issues and really discovering ways to run those offices more efficient and think about the impact those offices can have on multi-generations and legacy and philanthropy. So I think there's an opportunity for us to dig deeper within our membership to to kind of attach ourselves to things that are really important to our members. And again, that's the beauty of being a small, nimble organization. We can make those changes and adapt pretty quickly. So I'm excited where Tiger 21's headed. I'm really proud of our past and really excited to where we're headed.
That's great. Greg, you may remember at the very beginning of this podcast, I was contextualizing our conversation with something that I had done last year, which was talk to young podcasters who are working with people who are starting out their financial journey, financial literacy for the very young. I see some interesting commonality. Of course, your scale, scope, everything is at a completely different magnitude in the stratosphere. But human instinct, whether people are starting out or whether people have been very, very successful, is about preservation of their wealth, coming up with some legacy, thinking through where they can go. And that to me is almost universal. So I'm kind of glad that, I've sort of, through the course of my podcast, sort of rounded the thing, starting with financial literacy for the very young, to talking to somebody like you who's looking at people who have arrived at the destination, and the human imperatives are still pretty common. Greg Wells, thank you so much for your time and insights.
Thank you for having me and spending time with you. It's been wonderful and always good to talk to you.
Absolutely, Greg. Thanks also to our listeners. Kopi Time was produced by Ken Delbridge from Splice Studios. Daisy Sharma and Violet Lee provided additional production assistance. Kopi Time is for information only and does not represent any trade recommendations. All 96 episodes of the podcast are available on YouTube and on all major podcast platforms, including Apple, Google, and Spotify. As for our research publications, webinars, and live streams, you can find them all by Googling DBS Research Library. Have a great day.